and then they become that, okay? And your aha moment is usually at the top of that arc, okay? But we want to know, how is the character changed? Did they go through all this and they're coming out at the same person as when they went in? Maybe. I suppose there are exceptions to that rule, but mostly we're wanting to see characters who have changed because of the story, okay? And we want to see the evidence of that. And not just a religious camp meeting experience, okay? It's going to be a gradual arc, okay? You may have an atheist who then, through the interactions he has with other characters, through the things that happen to him within your story, has the aha moment, yes, there is a Christ, there is a Savior, okay? But there's definitely a change, okay? And then because of that aha moment, he's going to be different somehow. He's not going to be acting and talking and being the same as he was at the beginning of the story. Okay. Again, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm used to doing these things live, so it's a little strange for me to do this electronically and digitally. We want to see heroes who are flawed and overcomers, okay? They're not, even Hercules and all your classic mythical creatures were flawed. And we want to see how people and readers want to cheer. They want to say, yeah, you did it, buddy. Okay, that's just our human nature. We want to cheer. We want to root our character on, and we want to say, oh, you didn't do that, did you? Oh, no. Or we're going to say, don't open that door. You talk to your TV when you're watching movies, okay? And readers will mentally do that in the process of reading your book. They're going to scold your character for what they did. And that's what makes it engaging, okay? When your reader can go on the journey with you throughout your story. Okay, I did that. Okay, moving on. We're also going to be looking at style. Now, what do I mean by style? That is the author's overall pervasive voice in the story, okay? And we've come, Christian publishing has come a very long way in developing real people with real problems and real solutions. Not that there's anything wrong with fairy romances and nostalgia and all that. I mean, there's a lot of readers who still like to go there. But we've been more lenient and tolerant of stories that involve broken homes, divorce, alcoholism, and other strong addiction. I have in my book, Bosea's Heart, that my primary character is a minister whose wife ran away from home. She struggled with drug addiction, and he's been looking for her. When he finds her, she has become a Christian on her own, but she's terminally ill. And he has to struggle. Do I take care of her now? What's going on? But then he finds out she's a primary witness against the drug lord. And so he's hampered from even doing that for her. And I'm not going to tell you the rest of the book. You'll have to read it for yourself. But it's a real steamy part of life. Some of the setting is in the Capital District in Washington, D.C. I traveled up and down Eastern Avenue and got some education on some of those drug issues and problems there. So yeah, you had a point, and they got lonely and left. Okay. Yeah, we don't have to worry so much about topic because we're pretty open to that. But your style, we're talking about style. We want to see a consistent author voice, okay? Unique, honest, consistent throughout your manuscript. I had one manuscript come in, I won't mention names, okay? It was co-authored, and I really struggled with it, okay? It had been previously published long ago, back in Christian fiction's infancy, okay? The problem was that the voice was warring against one another. One of the authors wrote in an omniscient point of view, and the other author wrote in a deep point of view. And if you have questions on what those are, put that in the chat, and I'll try to answer that. So it was conflicting. It was very inconsistent through the story, and it just was jarring, and I had a hard time identifying with the characters. When I tried to critique that, I was told I didn't know what I was talking about, but as a reader, I had a lot of struggles with it. Ultimately, we were able to counsel the authors, and they were able to change, and ultimately the book will be published. Okay, but it was a battle. Okay, so be careful, you know, that your voice, whether it's a deep point of view or a distant point of view, is consistent, okay? Okay. What I mean by distant narration, okay? Look at a mountain, okay? When you're traveling, where you live, it's low country, I know, but there's a lot of beautiful mountains in your area, okay? Take a look and take your camera out, and you can do a distant photograph. And then as you look at that distant photograph, things are going to be described differently than if you zoom in and you get a close-up of that mountain. Things are going to be clearer or more intimate with you. And a deep point of view is an intimate travel with the author through your book. You really feel what your characters are feeling. You are really sensing them. And deep point of view will use the senses, whereas a distant narrative will use the more journalistic who, what, where, when, and why. Okay. There's nothing wrong with either style. Okay. I find that a lot of historical fiction tends to be more of the distant narration, where the author is more dictatorial in the presentation of the manuscript. Okay. Most of your thrillers will be more didactic and fast-paced, and you just don't have time to do all this emotional experience in the book because too many things are happening all at once. So a lot of times your genre is going to depend on whether you use a deep point of view or a more distant narrative. I tend to be very deep point of view. In fact, I was so deep point of view even before the term was used. And they had a problem with that initially, but it's gotten, so that is my trademark, is that deep point of view. Perhaps more subjective from the editor's point of view, the author should know their own artistic style and be true to that style. When I'm evaluating a book to be published, I want to know, does the author have a handle on who they are as a writer? Or are they trying to copycat another author and their style and the way they write, because they think that's the only way they're going to get published if they write this way? God's ability to imbue us with creativity is so individualistic. Each of us has their own specialness in being able to create. And so you tap into who you are as a person and as an artist, and be true to that. And that's what we look for. Okay. I use the analogy, if you bear with me a minute, and this might illustrate the point. When I learned to golf, I copied my mother-in-law because she was a really good golfer. I mean, even though she was in her 80s, she was, you know, she was winning prizes and all that. So I wanted to be like her because I admired her so, and I wanted to be as successful as she was. So if I thought, well, if I golf the same way she does, then maybe that will happen. Problem was, she was 5'2" and I'm 5'8". So her style in golfing didn't work for me, okay, because of the height variance. So I had to go back and learn my own way to swing. You know, she had a baseball swing, you know, and because she was short, it landed in the fairway most of the time. But because I'm tall and using the baseball swing, it went left, right, military golf, you know. So it just didn't work. I had to go back and develop my own way of doing things. Now, I'd like to say I'm a pretty good golfer, but I got a long way to go on that. But I enjoy the game more because it's me. I'm golfing the way I should golf. And when you're looking at your story, ask yourself, is this me? Or am I echoing C.S. Lewis? Am I echoing Tolkien? Am I echoing some other, Isaac Asimov? Okay. You want to be true to yourself. We talked already about point of view. Okay, I'm going to move on to imagery. Okay. We want imagery that is consistent with the story. Okay. I'm sorry, I want to backtrack just a little bit and bear with me, please, because this is important. Head hopping, we were talking about a consistent point of view. And I see this so much in manuscripts. The author wants to make sure the reader understands what's happening, so they jump out of one character's head and what that character is thinking and goes to another character who's thinking something. It's very insidious. And I have, even with all the years of writing I've been doing and all these books I've published, I still sometimes, whoops, I'm not supposed to do that, okay? Because we want the readers to really get what's happening here. So head hopping can be very dangerous because it pulls the reader out of their relationship with one character, and then you're suddenly with another character. But there are times when head hopping works. So again, you know, you need, as you're doing your revisions on your manuscript, try to look for that head hopping and say, did I do this on purpose because I'm trying to show something? One of the examples, I think, of head hopping that really works well is in The 10th Circle with Jodi Picoult. And if you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. It's fabulous. I mean, she's the writer I would aspire to be, but I have to be my own person. So I just, okay. But in that book, there's a scene where the daughter is in the car with the father. They're not talking. So how are you going to get their ideas across? First you go to him, go to her, go to him, go to her. It sets up an enormous, beautiful conflict between the father and the daughter. And you're just involved with the love that the father has for the daughter. Very powerfully done. And so it works, okay? Nora Roberts is another one that head hops a lot. My own personal opinion is I found it a little bit distracting, but she's Nora Roberts, so she can get away with it. Okay. But you might want to read some of her books if you can get past the, remember she's the general market author, so there's some kind of graphic things that happen in her book. But she does head hopping, and most of the time I think that head hopping is purposeful. When you've got two characters who aren't talking, same thing as in Jodi Picoult's narrative. Okay. Although her book, Jodi Picoult's treatment of that head hopping is fabulous. Okay. Now we were talking about imagery. Okay. it needs to be consistent with the story, okay? And I think that says for itself, okay? We also want to see fresh and snappy dialogue, okay? And I know you've heard this before. You don't want that, hello, how are you today? Oh, I'm fine. You know, what'd you have for lunch? Well, I don't remember. You know, it's trite. It's the way we talk to one another. It's real, but it's not interesting, okay? Dialogue is an overused story, underused story element. Dialogue has the potential to move your story forward, to reveal characters, to help us understand your character better. And what we want to see, it also is that the dialogue is consistent with who your character is, okay? If you have a college professor, their language and syntax is going to be more educated when they talk. If you want to throw in a surprise, that's fine, you know, because we're complex individuals. But the dialogue should be purposeful, to move the story forward. And do we get a better understanding of who the character is through their language? If you have a doctor, a lot of their words and their references are going to be medical when they're talking to people. And that can create conflict if they're talking to somebody that doesn't know diddly about medical things, and then they're throwing in about MRI and all these technical phrases that physicians will use among themselves. So, and so that might give you an opportunity to educate the reader a little bit as the doctor explains this to the ignorant client. But, you know, it should be consistent with who the character is, okay? Occupation, sex, age. Okay, and it should enhance the plot, okay? Dialogue should move the plot forward. Okay, we really get turned off when we see contrivances in dialogue, such as, well, as you know, Sam, today's a sunny day, you know, rather than describing the day to the reader, you know, we use what we call author dump, okay? The author is intruding into the story, even in the dialogue, to give the reader information that the author thinks the reader needs. It's hard, I'll go with you, you know, you want the reader to know stuff, but at the same time, you got to let the reader discover that information for themselves through the other elements. Okay, we're also going to want to look at the presentation of your manuscript, okay? I want to be able to put this blue ribbon on it when I get done reading it. Okay. What do I mean by presentation? Good use of grammar. There are a lot of helps. Some of you may be, what's the name of that? Pro Editor, I think it is. That's very helpful in giving you cues. Again, it's technical stuff, so it sometimes doesn't get what you're trying to say. So I wouldn't rely on it like it was gospel, but it can be an indicator if you're running into some grammatical issues or problems, or tend to use grammar inconsistently, or shows your weakness in certain grammatical areas. I happen to be an English teacher, but I try not to let it get in the way of my writing. I try very hard to not be formulaic and not be so formal in my narration. We want to see active syntax, okay? Avoiding the passive. The character does the action, not the subject, okay? The action is purposeful, Example, John tossed the ball is tossed by John. And I know you've heard this before. Believe it or not, I see this all the time when I'm looking at a prospective manuscript. I don't know how much more. It's just that let your character do the acting. Okay, don't let the objects do the action. That will help a lot. Okay, we talked about imagery a little bit before, but we want to see that it's worked well. We don't want to see confusing metaphors or dangling modifiers. That happens a lot when I'm editing a manuscript. I see that a lot, where the modifier comes at the end of the sentence rather than before the subject or the noun. Okay. Okay, and we talked again about we want to know that the elements are consistent with the takeaway. The elements are your setting, your dialogue, your characters, your narrative, okay? And your genre. Genre is also an element. Okay, all those things will work together to give a good, consistent view of what your takeaway or your message is. Okay, and actually, as far as Elk Lake is concerned, markability is important, but it's not primary, okay? But we do have to look at it, and we have to say, you know, that we probably will look at all these other elements and say, oh, this is a good book, let's look at it further, and then we're gonna look, is this book marketable, okay? But we wanna see a good product first before we look at the marketability. Unless, of course, you got a name. We have some authors in Elk Lake that they can publish anything because they have that platform. So we do try to work with them to make sure their manuscript is desirable, but at the same time, we know that they're going to sell well. Okay. We want to look at the author's credibility, authenticity, probably experience too. Okay, how well do they know the subject that they're writing about? Okay. Do they know their history? We want to look at that too. If there's a lot of historical errors, that's not going to make the book very marketable. It's going to, you know, get a lot of people angry. How will the author's experience relate to the nature of the book be used for promotion? Okay, how will the author use his experiences through his research? Sometimes it was historical. A lot of authors will develop a blog on those historical issues. I have a friend in a chapter up here in Maryland who likes to write very early history, before the flood kind of biblical fiction. That's tough, but he's an expert in ancient history. So he has a blog that relates to the nature of his book. And we want to look at platform. I hate that word, don't you? I get something like, who am I? And, you know, I don't feel like I'm anybody special. It's hard to develop that platform. But that's something that we need to look at. And one of the ways that we evaluate that is what groups or organization does the author belong to. So when you're doing your proposal, make sure you mention those groups that you participate in, because they're influencers. You know, as you develop those relationships and friends, they will help you promote your work. How extensive is the author's social media platform? Now, you don't have to be on every single one. You know, I got a little carried away there and put myself on TikTok, but you know, with my bad knee, I don't think I want to dance life away. So I kind of got off TikTok. I don't do Snapchat because my books are not geared, they're not YA I might though. I've got a children's sci-fi that's going to be published later, either later this year or early 2022. And he's a cosmic librarian who gets stranded on Earth. A little ET-ish, you know, maybe ET meets intellectual or something, but it's fun. So I may need to go places I haven't been before. Do a little Star Trek exhibit, only go where no one has gone before. How extensive is the author's social media? And how does the author demonstrate willingness to help promote their work? And my little advice to you is don't be grandiose, be real. Okay, what can you actually do? Not what you fantasize you're going to do, but what you actually think you can accomplish in promoting your book. Because we have these, you know, you want to use all these fancy little catchphrases, but when it comes down to brass tacks, we're not able to follow through with that. So you want, when you do your proposal and put down your strategies for marketing, make sure that what you say you're going to do is doable for you, and not what you think the publisher wants to hear. And ultimately, we make the decision on, does this manuscript meet the reader expectation for the genre? Okay. Okay, thank you for listening. And I hope you gained a little bit of wisdom here, and I'm ready for your questions. If someone fielding those on chat, should I stop the share and then go to chat?
I think on chat, we were mainly commenting among ourselves as you were going along. Maybe we can ask anyone who has questions in chat, maybe they can repeat them for you now, or any new questions that people want to bring up. And thank you so much, Linda. It was very helpful.
There we go. Oh my goodness, you have been chatting. Okay.
Yes, we've been listening and having fun chatting.
Okay, great. I like that.
Well, I don't want to hog you, but I'll start with a question. Are you interested in books submissions that have already been published by either other publishers or independently published, or are you only looking for manuscripts that have never been published before?
No, we do a lot of independent publishers who want to revise their book. So we have started an Amish line, believe it or not. We really had kind of shied away from that, but what the types of Amish literature we're bringing in are really edgy and different. They're not your they're not sanitized versions of what it's like. In fact, we even have one author who's doing Amish science fiction.
Really?
Or speculative, however you want to define it. You know, end of times kind of thing, and with
that's interesting.
They're much more well prepared to endure some of those things that might happen in the future. So yeah, we're pretty open. But if you've published something individually, of course you'd have to take it off the market for yourself, and then you can submit it.
What is the benefit, or why would an independently published author do that? Like, from what the authors that you're working with, if they already have the books published, what is the benefit of then republishing the same books with your publisher?
Sometimes I think it's just they just want to be part of a publisher. It might be for self gratification. Somebody actually wanted to publish my work.
Yeah.
Okay, rather than do it myself. There's also, even though we don't do nearly what we'd like to do to try to help our authors market, okay, you know, just having the camaraderie of other authors within Elk Lake. Elk Lake prides itself with a family atmosphere, even though we have 200 authors. We are hoping to do what Deb calls a family reunion, where we'll all try to get together, we had hoped to do that during the, of course, we're based in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We had hoped to have a get together during the 400th anniversary of the landing on Plymouth Rock. But because of COVID, that got canceled. So we're looking to 2022 and hoping that we can get another meeting together. But we share a lot, and we have the Facebook page and pray for one another. It's such a great family atmosphere. When you're independently published, you don't have that as much. There are other independent authors that you can congregate with, but it's different when you're with the same publisher.
Yeah.
I myself don't want to go independent, even though, some people prefer that method. It's just my own personal preference.
Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me. What does your publisher do as far as marketing?
I'm sorry to say not very much. And that's why a lot of people like to go independent, because they figure, well, if I got to do all my own marketing, why bother? But one of the things, like with the anthologies, we can help one another get more notoriety, more potential readers, because we're going to be sharing our readers with our co-authors. So that is a marketing tool that we're doing with the anthologies. Actually, it's not a big money maker, because by the time you share that royalty with other authors, you're not getting a lot of money, but it's getting you a lot more exposure. Deb is very good about supporting authors when they want to take marketing classes. She's very tuned in on what's free out there, and lets us know how we could hook into those opportunities. So there's some, there's a lot of education that we're given. And again, we try to support one another. When you're in an industry like that, when you see someone within your house that has posted a link to their book, you want to share it. So we do try to do that. We're working more and more towards building that kind of concept. We want to try to build maybe more support groups within the house to help one another. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Linda,
Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You weren't finished. Go ahead, Christina.
Well, it's just does Elk allow you to use real names of places like we had a Coke?
We're not too awfully strict on that. I did, for one of my books that I'm working on now, will be published later. I kept referring to a Camry. Okay. And then I decided not to use the Camry, because the Camry was being used in commission of crimes. So I didn't want to have that negative connection to the product. Okay. So editors would probably be on the lookout for that. It's our culture. And when you name places and people and things like that, as long as you're doing it positively and you're not giving a negative connection to that place or name or whatever, there's probably not an issue with it.
That's great. I'll just say, not to name I'm very happy to be published, but my publisher, this is one little thing that really is driving me crazy, is I can't even mention Edgar Allan Poe. They made me take that out, and I used it in context of he was on Sullivan's Island, which is a local place, and that's where he was stationed there, and he wrote his story about and I'm like, it's Edgar Allan Poe. He's very much dead. Not going to care. But
yeah, it depends on how it's used. That's the bottom line. And if you're quoting, or if you're, using like a song title and things like that, we do not allow actual words from the song. The song titles are okay. All right. So you have to look at it too from a liability aspect. And I know a lot of my books are set in the Adirondacks. The towns themselves are fictional, but I try to anchor with real places. I mentioned Albany, or, you know, Herkimer. In one book, Fiddler's Fling, there's a scene that takes place in the courthouse, and it's the same courthouse where the famous Theodore Dreiser got his book from. The Sun Also Rises, where the guy, the Chester, I think his name is, killed this this poor girl because she was pregnant. Moose Lake, it took place. So in that scene, I have the character think about that, you know, the connection between the actual courthouse and how that inspired Theodore Dreiser to write this book. So yeah, it depends again on how it's used, and it helps people. I think it helps the reader when you use actual names and places to anchor. It gives them, you know, a solid foundation. That's my own personal opinion. So
Mine too. Got me a little
obey
crazy.
your publisher. I mean, you know, your publisher has their reasons, even if you don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to say they're right or they're wrong. Okay, it's just the way they're doing business, and if you want to stay with that publisher, you kind of have to fall in line and do things the way they want things done.
Yes.
Okay, would you please elaborate on head hopping? I had not heard that term before, and I want to understand it better.
I'll do my best. Okay. You're in a scene, okay? You maybe you've been in the mind of your hero, okay? Who's looking, if you're writing a romance, and he has thoughts about the heroine, and he's thinking about how beautiful she is, and maybe he should ask her for a date or whatever. So we're inside his head. We're being exposed to his emotions, to his feelings, to his personal, intimate thoughts, okay? Then what some writers do is, because they want the reader to know what's going on inside the heroine's head, all of a sudden they'll jump into the heroine's thoughts. It can be done. Again, Nora Roberts does this, where there's no talking going on, but it's really, really hard to do. So we kind of discourage that, and stay in one character's head at a time. If you want to go into the heroine's thoughts and it warrants development, you can always do a scene break and then go into that heroine's thought life, what they're thinking.
I've read some books where the author, every chapter was from the point of view of a particular character. I personally, it helps me keep things straight as to who's thinking what, who's doing what. I don't see it often though, and I'm wondering how you feel about that. What from an editor's perspective or publishing, how does that sound to you?
I think the bottom line is it clear?
Okay.
Okay, clarity. If it's clear and it's understood and it's used as a literary tool,
Okay.
okay, rather than carelessness on the author's part. And that's going to be evident as we review and look at the manuscript. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm one, and Deb feels the same way. We do not want to pigeonhole our authors in their development of their manuscripts. Okay, we want them to be genuine and true to their artistic expression. Okay, and that's going to be different for every individual. But we want the manuscript to be clear to the reader. We don't want the reader to get lost in artistic development that's avant-garde so far that, you know, the reader gets completely lost. I've read manuscripts that experimental, if you want to call them that, where the book is all one sentence, except from beginning to end. Okay, I don't know if I would enjoy that as a reader. Very avant-garde. Again, that's who that writer wants to be, so I'm not going to judge him. I myself personally would probably be turned off by a book like that. I doubt Elk Lake would publish a book like that. If it's not clear, if you can't understand what the author is trying to get across, okay, then it doesn't work. No matter how artistically it's written, you know. I've seen some manuscripts go on and on and on with description to the point where you're losing the focus of the story. It's beautiful. It's beautifully written. You're drawing yourself in. You just want to be there. It's gorgeous, the sun setting, and you feel the peace. It's really artistically written, but I forgot what's happened beforehand. So again, clarity is the key. Okay, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Hi, Linda. My name is Kelsey,
Hi,
and thank
Kelsey.
you for coming. Yes. And I was just wondering, are you ever looking to recruit editors for your team?
Always.
Okay.
Your
Okay.
experienced, if you're an experienced editor, you know, shoot Deb a summary of your experiences and whatnot. We've really developed a lot with that. When I came on board, I was the single fiction editor. Then we got a few more, so then she asked me to supervise all the other fiction editors, and then I became a managing editor. I've been growing with the company for they're 5 years now. We have 21 editors right now, so that's quite a bit. But the number of books we're putting out, you know, we need more editors. It's, you know, we really need them. So if you have that expertise, yeah, please.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I was thinking about either going into business by myself and starting an editorial company, because I'm like you, I can see all the different aspects of the story rather than just the grammar. So, but yeah, I'd love to at least try to work on your team. So I'll pray about that.
Yeah, now Elk Lake, again, depends on how the book sells, because they pay their editors via royalty. Okay, so if the book doesn't sell, you're not going to get a lot of money. But I know for myself from editing, I'm a much better writer. It's really developed my craft quite a bit through the process of editing.
Linda, you said Deb. You've mentioned Deb several times. Is that the owner of the company, and what's her name?
Deb Haggerty, Hagggerty. Okay.
Okay.
Again, that's that family atmosphere. You know, we're all brothers and sisters in that organization.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be there.
And I would like to say that Linda and Deb and Elk Lake, they respond quickly. When you have an email or you have a question or a comment or something, you get a quick response. You don't have to wait months and months to hear back. You get a quick response. And that, like Deb was saying, or Linda was saying, that family atmosphere, you just feel that right away, you know.
Melissa, are you published by Elk Lake?
No, I'm praying about it. I hope to be one day, but you know, Linda's looking at my stuff, so it might one of my stories. So we'll, you know, it's got a lot of work to be, you know, so
That's awesome. I didn't realize that.
praying about it, praying, hoping the Lord's leading us that way.
Great
We'll see.
story. It just needs some development, that's all.
Okay, any other questions for Linda?
Would somebody mind putting Deborah's name, email in the chat?
Oh, I'll try to find it.
Yeah.
I-
I think
Give me a minute here while I go to my Google. I may lose you. If I lose you, I'm sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yep, we can still hear you.
I think I got it. I think it's, I think I've got it.
Yeah, it's Deb at Elk Lake Publishing Inc.com. You got it? You can put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm putting it.
Okay.
Thanks.
There you go.
Well,
Oh, there you go. We got it a couple times. In case it's, yeah, there we go. Right. Well, Linda, thank you so much for coming and visiting and sharing such valuable knowledge. We're going to share this with our other, well, I have at least 3 either members or guests who specifically wanted to hear you, but had something come up on their calendar. So I know we're going to be sharing the presentation, and just really a lot of great information for us to think about and put into use in our own writing. So.
Well, thank you. You can find me or email me with any questions, Linda Rondeau @gmail.com. And my website is www.lindarondo.com. And you can also find out more about me on Elk Lake Publishing. And I'm always looking for reviewers. So if you're interested in doing any reviews, just email me privately and see what you're interested in. And if I can just do a quick commercial on my current book is nonfiction, and it's called "Who Put the Vinegar in the Salt?" And it can also be used for independent and group Bible study.
Oh, great.
Thank you for letting me do my commercial. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So thank you for having me. I enjoyed it, and you've got a great organization, and I hope we'll see some manuscripts from you folks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.